Mr. Reed, if the Pentagon sweeping study that's due in December 1st comes back and says they are in favor of repealing, would you change your position?
And we've stated that we would defer to the military leaders. You know, it's a tough issue. It really is a tough issue, and I recognize it. And let's see where the military leaders come out. Let's see what they have to say. I am just greatly concerned about the disruption that this policy change could have while we're engaged in this global conflict.
Question to Mr. Reed. Some people have talked about being in lockstep with your party. Given the polarizing political environment in Washington and the lack of bipartisanship, could you give some specific policy issues where you disagree with your party? And then the same question.
Well, I'd like to answer this question by saying that I'm proud of the philosophies that we bring to the table. I'm proud of the fact that we are a conservative Republican. What that means is not because of its party identification, but what the philosophy behind that represents. I stand for the philosophy of a limited federal government. I stand for fiscal conservatism. I stand for getting our nation to live within its means once and for all, because we are on that path of American bankruptcy. That's a national security threat. And we are proud to carry those philosophies forward. And at the end of the day, I will tell you that, you know, No Child Left Behind is an example of where we disagree with the Republican administration that put it forth and the Republican party that has supported that policy. But the bottom line is this. We're not going down to Washington, D.C. to join a country club. We're not going down to Washington, D.C. to become a member of the Republican leadership conference. What we're doing is going down because I believe in what we're doing. And this area needs representation that knows the area, that lives here, that will die here. You know, I live down on Washington Street right here in the house my grandfather built. It's home. It's where we came back to raise our family. It's the same home I was raised in. My kids go to the same school that I went to, All Saints, St. Mary's. It's about representing this district, and there's nothing more important to me than doing that. And I hope we've demonstrated to people with the 72,000 miles that we put on the car traveling around this district, engaging in these debates. We're going to have 11 debates and forums by the time that they're done. We're not playing politics of old. We are open to scrutiny. We are open to being accessible. And that's what we're going to do. And it's not about joining the Republican Party or standing with the Republican Party. We will reach out. We will, when that open and honest debate is forced, especially, for example, when it comes to the budget, we draw that hard line on the spending at $3.8 trillion. We will look to the other side to say, where can we cut? Where can we not cut? And that's the debate and discussion that we're going to have, and that's what we're going to do when we get to Washington, D.C.
I'm just going to give you a straight answer, not espouse politically like a politician. I oppose cap and trade. My party doesn't. I think it would be a detrimental effect on our economy, particularly to our farmers. I would not have voted for the health care bill. Now, I do want to acknowledge there are about 5 provisions in it that I think are worth protecting, and I think everyone in this room would agree with me. We can't have your insurance denied to you based on a pre-existing condition. You can't have it stripped from you as you're being rolled into the ER. We extended benefits for people at the age of 26, and I think every parent here would like to see their child who's not capable of earning a health care on their own be covered for as long as possible. And we cut the donut hole for Medicare. What I would like to see is a debate moving forward on how to amend that rather than repealing it. And I think my party would probably not want to have that debate. And I'm a card-carrying member of the NRA. And there's not a lot of Democrats other than I think Senator Jim Webb and a couple others who can say that.
Follow-up question on this issue. Mr. Reed, you give the example of No Child Left Behind. Are there any current policies that you would oppose that is being put forth by the Republican Party?
Well, and that I think is a current policy, and it's an example of where we stand in difference. And the bottom line is this: the number one issue is the economy. The number one issue is the national debt. The number one issue is getting people back to work. They're all tied together because we have to get our fiscal house in order. And the solutions that are being put forth have to be based on those priorities and those targets, and that's what we're going to do down in Washington, D.C.
Follow-up question to Mr. Zeller. You said you would oppose the health care bill. if the choice came down to passing the bill as it was or not passing any health care reform, would you oppose the bill?
Yes. We would put 24, and what we did was we took 24 million people and we said you are obligated to buy this industry's product without ever having to address how they're going to be paid for, what industry is going to do. We did nothing to address costs. I think that's fiscally irresponsible. I agree with Tom. We're 13 trillion in debt and growing. $1 trillion of that is held by the Chinese. Every single person in this room, watching at home, if you're an American citizen, you owe Beijing $45,000. And at some point, they're going to ask to be paid back. That's a huge concern of them. We had to have dealt with it, and both Tom and I are disappointed that that never happened.
Mr. Zeller, do you support or will you help get the Employee Free Choice Act passed?
Yes. I think people should have the right to collectively bargain. I think the middle class should have the right to stand up and say, look, we need to have better wages in this country. We need to be respected by our employees. I proudly stand by this. The American middle class was built by labor. It just didn't build your family, it built my family as well. My dad's been a member of PEF for 30 years. Put food on our table. And we had a point in this country in which workers actually had rights. We're getting away from that. We're getting to the point now where we don't care about protecting your pension, we don't care about your benefits, we certainly don't care about your wages. We'd rather just send your job off to India to be done by somebody in a call center, or to somebody in Vietnam who will make a shoe for Nike at 2 cents a shoe. I mean, that's why we're eroding our middle class. And we're not giving ourselves a way to fight back. And this is one of those ways where we can finally start to fight back and say enough is enough. We're only strong when our middle class is strong.
Let's be very clear as to what the Employee Free Choice Act is. It's otherwise known as card check. What it will do is take away the secret ballot in the workplace for people to organize and become unionized. What I support is a secret ballot. If people want to unionize and organize, I support the laws that allow that. That's what they're talking about, and that's why we're opposed to it. Because what we have to do is recognize, you stand up for the government, Matt, you stand up for democracy. What is more democratic than voting on a secret ballot? That's why we're opposed to it, and it's a fundamental difference between my opponent and I, because I believe it is not sound policy, and I believe it puts power into areas of labor union representatives, and it empowers not the worker, but the labor union management and representative team. I want to keep the power in the hands of the individual when they have the right to choose on a secret ballot whether or not to unionize.
The Employee Free Choice Act, and let's be very clear about this because I've actually read the thing and clearly you haven't, does maintain the provisions of the secret ballot vote. It does it using the National Labor Relations Board in voting. It is very specific on how it's done. The only thing it changes is this. Here's how the process currently works. Say you want to unionize. You get 50% plus one. You go to management and you say, I want to unionize. Management then has a specific period of time, it could be several months, to have everybody in that workforce sit down and attend anti-union training. You have to. You have to go as part of your job. And then afterwards, then you get to have your secret ballot vote. All FCA does is take away that right of management to try and persuade people and say, we're having the vote right now because we've come up with 50% plus one and we want to be able to have our rights protected and taken care of. We have to start fighting for the middle class. And you're right, this is a profound difference. You stand for the rich and the elite. You want to give bankers bailouts. You want to take money from Wall Street. You've done it already. I stand with the American people who are saying we're sick and tired of the tax.
Misrepresentation of card check. Go on the internet. I trust you as individuals. Go on the internet. Type in card check. Type in the Employee Free Choice Act. Get the information and you will see what we're talking about is not what Matt is talking about. What we're talking about is taking away the secret ballot for individuals to determine their own future. I stand with the individual and having the power to decide their future going forward every day.
Mr. Reed, are you in favor of extending the Bush tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, that's the $250,000 and above?
I believe that the tax rates in America should remain. I believe that what we should focus on, and we've said this repeatedly, is the spending side of the ledger. To go and say this group should have to pay more taxes in order to cover the bill doesn't do anything to fundamentally change how we do business. This government, our government, must learn to live within its means. We are 100% committed to that. I don't want to get into the situation of saying, okay, 1% is good this year. Well, what about next year? Why not 2%? Why not 4%? Well, why don't we just say 50%? You know, what we're talking about here is a fundamental difference in philosophy. Matt's going to propose that we raise taxes to cover the budget deficit. My philosophy is cut the spending, organizationally and institutionally change how we do business, get government out of the way so the private sector can be unleashed, and as the economy grows and the budget comes down, you get into a balanced state. That is sound fiscal policy to me, and that's what we're going to be in Washington, D.C.